The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back talking sports from Nedick's at the Old Garden with Hal Bock and the crew. The crew is David Hubler.
Hello.
David.
Okay.
David Hubler is here. George Case.
Yep, good evening.
All right. And who else is here tonight? I blanked.
Me.
Yes, of course, but I thought there was one more in the panel to talk to you, Hal Bock. All right. Well, let me ask you the question, Hal. What's the score?
Well, this week the score is about Nike and Colin Kaepernick, who is a perpetual problem for the National Football League. I mean, he's got to be driving those people crazy. I said he was like a pebble in your shoe, just very annoying, you know. What did Kaepernick do lately? Well, he's suing the NFL for collusion, which seems to me to be a very solid case because all of a sudden, after he did the kneeling on the national anthem, the NFL teams found 32 quarterbacks that were better than he was. More. What am I talking about? 64 quarterbacks. 32 teams each held two quarterbacks, sometimes three, who were more qualified to play than Colin Kaepernick. And he thought that was collusion. And so he's suing the NFL, and the federal judge said he could go ahead with that suit. The NFL tried to throw it out. So that was the first annoyance this week. And then, later in the week, Nike came out with its 30th anniversary Just Do It campaign featuring none other than Colin Kaepernick with a slogan across his face that said, "Believe in something even if it means sacrificing everything." And that drove a lot of people nuts because Kaepernick is like an arrow in their hearts. I mean, he's just driving them crazy. And many people responded to the ad campaign by burning their Nike gear. Well, that's not a good idea because there are charities that could probably use that clothing for people who were needed, people who were in need. But instead they chose to protest by burning the stuff. My thought on the whole thing is that Nike is an American company and they're participating in capitalism, which is the American way. And they believe that Kaepernick can sell product for them, so they're perfectly okay, as far as I'm concerned, in using him in this campaign. But others disagree, including the President of the United States, who shall remain nameless. And I found that to be a compelling subject for my column this week. So I open it to discussion what you guys think.
First, I neglected to say that David Hubler is here.
So am I.
And Blumkin.
You said plenty of times I was here.
Yeah, and Ralph forgot to put me in the one in the Sunday post.
Okay, I may have. I'm not considerate. I will put you in the Sunday post as soon as we get off air, Alan.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Thank you for correcting me. And
you're welcome.
Getting back to the situation, all these people burning their shoes, you made a great point. People need those shoes, the homeless and what have you. So, but I want to know what you guys think about his protest. As far as I'm concerned, he's not protesting the flag. He's protesting social injustice.
He never has protested the flag. I mean, from day one.
But there are a lot of people confusing this, including the president, who should remain brainless, if not nameless.
Can I say something about the president? The president caused us to think about this because the NFL wouldn't let him in as an owner.
Okay.
Okay, because he had that USFL team, and he thought he could push his way in, you know, especially with that antitrust suit where they won $1 and with triple damages it was $3. And then he tried to buy Buffalo after the original family, patriarch Wilson died, and they wouldn't let him in either. So that's why everything with him is personal.
Okay.
To me, that's why he's. That's why he created this whole stink about Kaepernick. Yeah.
There are a lot of people think that Kaepernick is wrong in all of this. What do you say, George? We're going to go around the room and ask everybody.
Well, I'm going to refrain from getting into the political discussion. My basic frame of reference has to be the Nike advertising part of it, since I was so involved in it. And Hal, I wanted to mention one thing to you. Were you aware of the Nike commercial or the Nike advertising from a few years ago on their running shoes?
No. What is that, George?
You mentioned Pebble. Their advertising campaign for many years on their running shoes had to do with it's not how high the mountain, it's how large the pebble in your shoe. So when I saw your column, Hal, I just had to mention it because it was so apropos as to what Nike really did. This was probably 25 or 30 years ago, right?
Right. What's ironic about all of this is that Nike and the NFL are partners. Every NFL team wears a Nike-produced uniform with a swoosh on it. So they're partners, business partners. So that's got to aggravate the NFL to be using Kaepernick in the Nike campaign. But in my mind, Nike is perfectly okay with that. And they're perfectly okay to use him rather.
Yeah, well, you know what, Pal, let me just jump in here a second. Nike, it's called brand awareness. That's the type of campaign it is. Their market really that they're going after are eyeballs. They're really not people that are buying a specific Nike shoe. In the old days, when Michael Jordan was there, they had the Air Jordan with his logo on it and that kind of thing. They had Tiger Woods with trying to get into the golf shoe business. And today, they are so sophisticated because what they're trying to do, they're trying to reach millions and millions of American consumers walking into a sporting goods store, a Foot Locker, an Athlete's Foot, whatever, a Dick's, and they see a wall full of Nike shoes, and it's what they call brand awareness. So that's what they're trying to do. It's not specifically that they're selling Colin Kaepernick and a Nike football shoe, because they're not. They're selling an image and they're selling a brand, and it's called awareness. And I think for Nike, it's probably a very good thing because they do focus groups, they do storyboards, they do all kinds of things before they bring out an advertising campaign. And they realize that the vehicle for them to reach the biggest number of eyeballs of active people, not people our age, but young general public and say the 30 to 50 age range, those are the people that buy athletic footwear, whether it be for just casual or walking around or working out in the gyms or whatever. And that's what Nike's trying to reach, and they're using the NFL as a vehicle to reach that audience.
Well, I'm curious.
Can we get back to Kaepernick and his protest for a second, so we could just put it on record that it is a protest of social injustice, not Nike, not the flag, none of that. And everything else is a cover-up for that. Can we all agree on that?
I think there's no question about it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, Ralph. I think he used the national anthem as maybe a vehicle for his protest, but I don't think the protest is against the flag and the national anthem. On the other hand, I'm not particularly crazy about legislating how you respond. I mean, if I don't think a person, if he wants to, put his hand over his heart or stand as we've always done, take your hat off and that kind of thing. And going back to the '68 Olympics with John Carlos. I mean, if they want to put up a Black Power salute or whatever, raising their fist, I mean, that's up to them. That's freedom of choice. But I don't think you can.
No, but you remember in '68 when that happened, the Olympic Committee went nuts and they threw them out.
No question, Hal. I agree with that because it was the first time they've ever seen anything like that. Now, we're 40 or 50 years later, and if Kaepernick wants to do it, that's up to him. But I think he's incurred the wrath of a lot of people obviously, in the NFL. They're
I'm
concerned
glad
about
he
it.
did. I'm sure he
Right.
wanted to. He wanted to test the system.
Right.
And he does have, they're so stupid, as Hal said in his column, 62 quarterbacks get jobs as as substitute quarterbacks, whatever, and Kaepernick, who got the team to the Super Bowl, this, that, and the other thing, is a skilled quarterback in the NFL. They're so stupid. They all open themselves up to collusion and all of those things. He's going to break the bank. No question about it.
The irony here? A couple of years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, there was a linebacker at the university, I think it was Missouri, who came out and said, "I'm gay."
Right, he was gay.
A pretty
right.
good linebacker.
Right.
And the NFL was faced with this dilemma. Here's a player of the year or defensive player of the year in his conference, and he happens to be gay. Do we draft him? Do we avoid drafting him? It's a real dilemma. So they wound up with St. Louis drafting him in the 7th round or the 6th round, where prospects are few and far between. So they got around the issue of, do we draft him? Because we did. We drafted him. We're going to give him a chance. And all of the draft choices get a chance. Most of them don't succeed. The first rounders or the second rounders, even third rounders, are true prospects. The ones after that are shot in the dark. So this kid was drafted, even though he's defensive player of the year in his conference. He was drafted, but eventually cut, and nothing more was said about it. So they dodged a bullet on that one. But
I saw him play. I saw him actually play for St. Louis in a preseason game against the Browns in Cleveland. He looked good to me, but I'm no pro football expert.
But, I'm sure that they were encouraged to draft him by the league because they didn't want any trouble.
Yeah.
And it just feels that way to me, at least.
I think they were forced into
avoid
it.
Trouble with him.
Yeah, I think they were forced into it. Somebody had to draft him just to keep things quiet, keep the lid on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, can I mention one thing in here now, Hal? Maybe I don't know, but I think the NFL they look at ratings and all that kind of stuff. Now I've been reading and have been told that on some games they are not going to show the opening like they always have of the national anthem.
That's true.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah.
Right. Now that must be some kind of an NFL.
Why would you play that song?
Right. Well, it's been a tradition in the NFL and Major League Baseball and NBA and all that to open a ball game with the national anthem. That's been going on for years and years. But
but in baseball they don't stand out there. They don't stand out in the field. The team that's coming up to bat, they don't stand out in the field unless it's an All-Star game or a World Series or opening day or some, what they consider a major event.
Right.
But they all stand up.
They're on the baselines. But but the fans themselves have always stood. I don't think there was any question. Now maybe some did that you never saw.
I remember going to a bunch of games during our little adventure in Vietnam, and there were people who would not stand up for the national anthem until that war ended.
Right.
Now
the other thing I want to just
that haven't ended. So
while we're talking about this, I just want to bring this up since we're on the anniversary of 9/11. 9/11 was such a traumatic experience for the country. Now, I believe the response, now a lot of games were canceled and that kind of thing, but I believe the response of Major League Baseball was to honor 9/11 to develop the singing on the 7th inning of God Bless America.
Yes.
Now, that to me is some kind of a corporate Major League Baseball response to the trauma of 9/11. Well, now we're 17 years later, and they're still doing it to the best of my knowledge.
And I totally disagree with it. I've made my position known before. If you stand for the national anthem, that's fine. But when you stand for a song that was a popular song, a hit, and even though it's got an American sentiment to it, that doesn't make it the equivalent of the national anthem.
You know, the leagues like to wrap themselves up in patriotism.
Right. I agree with all that.
They've always done that. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree, Alan, and David and Ralph and Hal. I mean, I agree with all that. I think that they have wrapped themselves in, and maybe that's what the NFL is doing too. But to me, you know, we should honor our country if it's the national anthem, the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, hey, I was doing substitute teaching a few years ago. They don't even do the Pledge of Allegiance in the schools anymore.
Oh, God, when I was in grade school and junior high school, we had to do that every day.
Right. It was the way you opened the school day and the kids, you know. And I remember when I was substitute teaching, I had a kid, he was standing in the back of the room, and he had his hat on, and he's just standing there. I said, son, this is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Take your hat off and put your hand over your heart. And the kid did. I mean, I think I probably embarrassed him, but on the other hand, it just annoyed me to see somebody, you know, doing that when all the rest of the kids, the 20 or 30 kids in the class, were standing up there and the Pledge of Allegiance, it was being recited over the PA system or whatever it was. Well, I see the same parallel when it comes to the national anthem. And, you know, it's part of honoring our country.
Again, you don't see a parallel, I hope, between what Kaepernick is doing and what you're talking about.
No, I don't.
There's one thing with Kaepernick, and I don't want to sound like a right-winger because I'm not by any means, but when you do certain acts, there are consequences.
Well, that was
every act.
That was the slogan on Nike.
Yeah, every act has a consequence.
Right.
Well, Donald Trump Jr. just agreed on that today when he said, I can go to jail. I'll be able to do it. I'm tough enough. He basically did an act that would require a comment.
Yeah. Just like his father was going to with the Parkland high school shooting in Florida, he was going to charge the shooter. Yeah, right. Yeah. The twig doesn't fall far from the tree.
You guys mentioned a little bit earlier the
exotic animals in Africa.
The Yankees
stands over them.
The Yankees have really bought into that. During the seventh inning, they now have a veteran. Sometimes World War II veteran, and they honor him, and the fans love it, and they go crazy. And he's on the field, and he's, you know, it's a nice gesture. It's not nothing special that they don't have to do it, but they do. The Yankees have
anytime you could honor a World War II veteran, what they went through, that's beautiful.
They've done that. Thing. And, you know, they've shown, I was saying today, I had lunch today with Marty Appel, who, terrific author and a terrific PR guy. He was PR guy of the Yankees for many years. And we were talking about Jason Zillow, who is now their public relations guy. And some of the things that Zillow has done with the Yankees really have been very, very. They resonate. The veterans on the seventh inning. It's a nothing thing, but the fans love it. And they also introduced something called Hope Week, in which during the week they take 1 week out of the summer, and each day they dedicate each day to a charity, to a veterans hospital. Players go and visit.
Yeah,
it's a nice gesture.
Very
and
nice.
That's just, you know, smart. That's smart marketing in my mind, and he gets a ton of public relations out of it, a ton of publicity out of it. So,
and considering, you know, New York is sort of the capital of cynicism. This goes over very well, despite all that.
That's right. You're 100% right.
And it was also sort of getting back to 9/11 a minute. It was also sort of the epicenter of 9/11 too, when the World Trade Center.
Of course.
You know, I mean, the Yankees and all, and Major League Baseball and all the television, and the Yankees and a lot of the Major League teams wearing, you know, FDNY caps and all that kind of thing. I mean, I think that really, you know, we were all so concerned and upset about what was going on at the time. My only complaint now is that 17 years later, it's become almost like the thing to do but I think the significance of it, and in my own opinion, I might be wrong, but the significance of God Bless America is lost. It was an Irving Berlin song.
Right.
It wasn't our national anthem. David said it was a popular song. And, now we're sort of honoring the memory of 9/11 by doing this God Bless America, where everybody, is standing up and singing and doing all that stuff. But I think it's lost the significance of what the song used to be and what our national anthem. And I am not in any way condoning the fact that Colin Kaepernick, taking the knee as a protest against the United States. I absolutely agree. I think it's a protest against social injustice. But he was.
That's all that I wanted to make clear from you guys,
right.
That we all agree on that. That whatever happens, he's going to get his due, because they left themselves open, did the NFL, to a hell of a suit. And as Hal said, they've dodged the bullet before, but they didn't change any of their decision-making along the way. They should have learned something from
they've been wrestling with this, with Kaepernick's act now for 3 years. They don't know how to handle it. At one point they said, well, let the team stay in the clubhouse, in the dressing room, while we play the national anthem, and we'll fine you if you come out and you kneel. Well, that didn't work. The Miami Dolphins saw to it that wouldn't work, and now they've discarded that idea, and they still don't have a solution to this problem. And one of the ways to deal with it is let the players do what they want to do. Some of the players kneeled on opening day. Not that many, though, from what I could understand. It wasn't that many. You let people do it.
There was a kid from the Raiders who knelt yesterday, last night.
How many were there?
It went by me as on the screen at the, one of those things at the bottom of the screen. It was an all-star, and I think it was just one. But let's see what happens. How they
when it started, whole teams were kneeling, and it's just kind of petered down to one or two guys on each team. Sometimes no guys on each team.
Yeah.
So,
one of the ways they could not resolve it, but keep it more or less down on the is to not, just like they do in baseball games when somebody runs out on the field. They don't show that person running out on the field. So when the national anthem is played, show the flag. Don't show the teams on the sideline. That's one kind of sort of easy solution to the situation. Only the people in the stands are going to see who's kneeling and who isn't. So
you got 70,000 people who are
so
watching
what?
this.
So you got how many million are watching it on TV?
Sizable number.
Yeah, but what are they going to do? Go home and say, "Hey, did you see so and so was kneeling? I saw it."
No.
I mean, it's like how many million people watch a football game on Sunday? I don't know, on TV.
A lot.
A couple of million? A lot. A lot more than 70,000.
I would
all over the world.
Sure.
And 3/4 of them are bookies.
True, very true.
Okay.
It's a
with legalized gambling, I guess that's probably true.
Statement, an individual guy's protest, and in America we have freedom of speech until we don't have it. Right now we still have it. Freedom of speech means I can express myself. Well, what's wrong with them expressing themselves by kneeling?
I have
I don't see the point of getting all hot and bothered about this issue. And by doing that, by getting all upset about it, they've just magnified it to the point now where, as Ralph said, it's going to cost them a lot of money.
That's because Orange had made the mountain out of the molehill.
Well,
as he usually does.
Yeah, and that's basically what I said before. He hates the NFL because they wouldn't let him in. And he holds grudges.
That's the whole story.
And he holds grudges, and everything with him is personal.
That's right.
Yep. No question.
Well, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. They did keep him out of here, and with good reason, as we can see today. Yeah.
Well, they have high standards about their who they're in business with, and he didn't manage.
I wish the Mets had high standards about who they did business with. But that's another story. The Wilpons are to be saved for another day. Anybody want to talk about anything that's on your mind about this? George, have you gotten it out?
Well, yeah. I mean, I didn't mean to bring up a lot of other subjects
I just
about
don't
it, but
leave anybody short.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just that I think that Kaepernick is entitled to do whatever he wants, and I think Nike has capitalized on it. They're, as I mentioned earlier, to whatever publicity you get, as far as Nike's concerned, it's good publicity, and that's why they stayed with Tiger Woods for the same thing. I mean, everybody was pulling away from him and doing all kinds of stuff, and Nike stayed with him. And, all of a sudden now he's coming back, and maybe he's going to have, a good next couple of years on the tour. And, Kaepernick, maybe he won't ever play another game in the NFL. I don't know, but he certainly made a name for himself, and Nike's going to be able to capitalize on it with their advertising. And I think that's what they're looking to do.
It's interesting. Tiger Woods was the world's best golfer for many years.
Right.
And suddenly he wasn't. He had a back injury and he had issues off the course, and he kind of disappeared. But he didn't disappear on Sunday or on Saturday or on Friday, because you tune into a golf tournament. This is before his renaissance, where he finished second in the U.S. Open a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
But any other golf tournament, you tune in, they're always following Tiger. The fans are always following Tiger.
Yep.
Why? Because he's Tiger. There's something about him that's magnetic, and the fans love it. And they follow him whether he wins or loses, whether he makes the cut or he doesn't make the cut. Television is glued to Tiger Woods in these tournaments. And it's because of his reputation for what he was and what he was doing.
Right, Hal, you're absolutely right, and that I think, and I wasn't privy to Phil Knight and the rest of the marketing department of Nike, but I think that's the reason they stayed with him, because of what you're saying, is that the cameras do follow him, and you'll see the Nike swoosh on his hat, you'll see the Nike swoosh on his shirt, he's wearing Nike golf shoes, so they stayed with him. And a lot of the companies, that Tiger Woods endorsed, they pulled out of it. But Nike did stay with him, and I think the same thing probably with Kaepernick. Whether or not he's ever going to play again in the NFL, I have absolutely no idea. He might be getting too old. Who knows? But on the other hand, people will associate Nike with Kaepernick and the social awareness and the social injustice and the things that he was protesting. And again, it's a lifestyle. It's a brand advertising decision, I think, that Nike made. And I congratulate them, because, all this stuff that we're talking about and fans talking about and people burning Nike shoes, I mean, that's good theater, and that's what they're looking for. And if they're going to reach X amount of millions of eyeballs watching the NFL, and they're going to see that Colin Kaepernick commercial, and they're going to walk into a sporting goods store or an athletic footwear store, they just might happen to buy a Nike brand, not specific to football, but just as a casual lifestyle shoe.
Mm-hmm. Are they showing that commercial on NFL games?
Yes.
Yes, over the weekend they showed it.
Oh, good. Okay. Because I'm just curious. I wonder if there's been any kind of a semi-official ban on having Kaepernick even come out onto the sidelines with his buddies. I mean, they could ban him from the stadium too.
Well, he's not on any team.
I know he's not on any team. Yeah, I know. But lots of times guys get onto the sidelines. People get on there.
No.
Do you guys find it interesting that people are coming down on Nike for this, and they don't come down on Nike for paying wages of like 13 cents an hour in sweat rooms to people in another country, making the shoe and charging a markup of 1,000% and what have you?
Well, that's capitalism.
I know.
But people, they don't even think about that, Ralph.
Hal's right.
They don't think about it. They don't care about it. What they care about is, I'm going to wear that shoe with the swoosh on it, or I'm going to wear that shirt with the swoosh on it. That's what they care about. That's an identification
you're right.
thing.
Hal, you're absolutely right. I mean, I can only tell you from my experience that is 100% right. That's what athletic shoe companies, that's what, apparel companies and all the kind of stuff that they do. That's part of it. It's getting to the bottom dollar that they're going to make on that product. And, if they're going to make it, it might be cost them pennies to make that shoe over in the Far East, but they're going to market that shoe for, as you said, Ralph, 1,000% markup or whatever it is, because that's what the consumers in this country are going to buy.
George, to this day, where does Keds make their shoes, U.S. Keds?
Well, they're made. There's a few made here, but most of them are all made over offshore. I mean, that's what they did. All those shoe companies. There's very little production. Right. There's very little production left in the United States. It's all offshore.
Even with Keds.
Yes.
And
they used to call them U.S. Keds because they were made in the United States and they were made in Norfolk, Connecticut.
That's what I mean when I think of Keds. Think of U.S. Keds.
Right. Right.
The shoe I wore as a kid before Converse.
Right. That was the original. The original brand was U.S. Keds, but I haven't seen a pair of Keds in many years. But I bet if you you walked into a store and you looked at a Keds shoe, you might not even find them now, but you might. And if you looked on the inside, they always had to have the country of origin on the label on the inside, whether it be on the tongue or on the side panel of the shoe. You'd probably find that the shoe itself was made, whether it be in Korea or Taiwan or Vietnam or wherever it is. That's where it would be made. It would not be made in the United States because there's very few products, footwear products in particular, that are made in the United States today.
Okay, George, before I forget, I want to ask you who that genius marketer is that seems to choose Jordan, Tiger Woods, now Kaepernick, for different reasons, but all attention getters. Who's the one guy with Nike that does that?
Well, I'm not sure who it is now, but it used to be that you'd have a director of marketing for the overall brand. Now, the way Nike's become so big that they would take a brand marketer by product, and then those product managers, marketing managers, would probably report to a director of overall marketing for the company. So that's who makes the decisions. But and they might even do their own in-house advertising. Now, in the past, a lot of shoe companies in particular, they would use an advertising agency, and the agency would develop a campaign. They would talk to the executives, the product people, the sales and marketing people about the campaign, and you would do a focus group, and you would show your product, you would show your advertising to a group. If the market you're going after teenagers or women or adult men, whatever it is, and you'd get their reaction before you ever came up with an advertising campaign. Now, I'm not sure Nike has done it with Kaepernick. They might have, but I'm certain that they did it with Michael Jordan and the whole Air Jordan brand, and I'm sure that originally they did it with Tiger Woods because at that point, Nike did not have a replacement athlete for Michael Jordan, and they had absolutely no golf business whatsoever until Tiger Woods came on board.
So, but they kept the Jordan thing alive, which he's been retired now like 15 years. And it's
well, he does, but he still has, the Air Jordan logo is still very popular, as I've mentioned a couple of weeks ago. I mean, kids are still going into the stores and they want to buy a Michael Jordan shoe. Now, today they might buy a LeBron James shoe, but it is still, and if you happen to see the Michigan game the other day against Notre Dame football, Michigan, all the uniforms for Michigan have the Michael Jordan Air Jordan logo on their uniform.
Yeah.
Now, I happen to notice because I'm looking at that stuff, but the average fan he probably could care less. But on the other hand, if the kid is being marketed to by a particular product, he's going to go in, he's going to see that Air Jordan initially with basketball, and maybe today it's going to be LeBron James. But LeBron James, just like Serena Williams, they're two of the most, visible Nike athletes in the world today. And Nike's, going to market their images and their product. And even though Serena, had a lot of controversy with the U.S. Open, again, it's publicity. They're seeing all that. And to me, that's what Nike's
spell my name right.
They have marketability. Kaepernick doesn't. Tiger Woods, was the best golfer in the world for about a decade. He still has marketability. Since he's returned somewhat to form, the golf ratings have gone up substantially on TV.
Right.
So they still have marketability. Kaepernick, has no real athletic accomplishments on the level of Serena Williams, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, or a Tiger Woods.
His name is in the news.
But he doesn't play.
Players are kneeling.
He doesn't play.
He was the one who started it.
Neither does Jordan anymore.
Yeah, but Jordan had a resume of 6 championships.
But his cause has marketability. Kaepernick is
not really. Not really. There's a lot of people out there. I hate to sound like a cynic, but there's an awful lot of people out there that totally disapprove of him. It's unfortunate, but that's the way the society has become.
And that's why he's taking a stand, and that's courageous.
But as I said, Michael, you never saw Jordan or Serena or Tiger Woods comment on anything politically. Okay.
I know.
In this society, when you comment politically, there's consequences.
Well, he's taking a stand.
He's part of that consequence.
This is something he believes in.
Worth of publicity.
So there are a lot of people out there. I'm not one of them, but there are an awful lot of people out there that can't stand him and think it's the wrong place to protest, blah, 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 blah.
Well, they burned their necks.
And he doesn't have the track record as an athlete to be able to pull this off.
Well, I think he does.
Let them burn their Nikes while they're still wearing them. As far as I'm concerned. Now, people can't see that it isn't the national anthem.
No, they can't. A lot of people can't see it. And Trump has exacerbated the whole thing tremendously.
No, you're right. He does. He has.
And Kaepernick has brought it to the attention of folks through Nike. Now, I'm not for Nike in particular, but I think in this case they're doing society.
He doesn't have the athletic credibility of the others. That's all I'm trying to say.
True.
That's all I'm trying
to say. But he certainly has gotten more publicity for Nike in the last week than they've had in the last 5 years.
Well, in a way, he's become a martyr, because of what happened. The NFL made him a martyr.
That's 100% right. And this is what Nike bought into this. And I think they did the right thing. I mean, obviously, they made a study, and they decided, this guy can sell product for us. And that's all they're interested in. They're not interested in political statements. They're interested in selling shoes and shirts and hats and all the other gear.
Have their sales numbers gone up since they put this commercial out?
What's that?
That remains to be seen. Have their sales numbers gone up since they put this commercial out? That remains
too soon.
That's what you have to look for. I can only tell you from experience. That's what you have to look for. The Nike executives, they're looking at the numbers. They're looking at the ratings. They're talking to their dealers. They're talking to people on the street. And Kaepernick is selling the brand, the Nike brand. He's not selling a Nike football shoe. I don't think you talk to 99% of the kids that watch football, they'll have no idea what's being worn on a football shoe. On the other hand, they would know basketball, or they would know golf, or they would know tennis, but when it comes to football, they're too far away from it. But on the other hand, if Kaepernick can sell an image of the brand, and Nike is a brand marketer, that's what they do. The whole campaign, just do it. That's what they build on.
All of us are old enough to remember when Ford and the oil company in the late 50s brought the Edsel out.
Right.
Okay, and to me, I'm not saying it will. I'm saying it might turn out to be an Edsel.
Alan, it very well could be. I can tell you for a fact. Yeah, I can tell you for a fact. I experienced that Edsel. Yeah. 1957. One of my first dates with my current wife, I took her to see the new Edsel. Well, 6 months later, or a year later, the Edsel was taken off because Ford realized they made a mistake. Now, the same thing could certainly happen with Nike if all of a sudden that they're coming back to them and say, hey, this is causing us more problems than it's worth. Our sales are declining, blah, blah, blah. They would pull that in.
How much is the publicity worth? How much? I mean, they're making a fortune in publicity in this couple of weeks.
Oh yeah,
they probably do. And Hal, I can tell you, and Alan and David and Ralph, what companies are looking to do is to see as much free advertising that they can get. That's what Trump was using, for crying out loud, when all his campaign. I mean, for all the controversy and everything was going on, and whether you believe in what he did or don't believe in what he did or what he stands for, but on the other hand, he wasn't paying for those ads. I mean, they were doing all those rallies and stuff, and Make America Great Again, and Donald Trump, blah blah blah. Well, basically, you can look at the same thing as being done in the athletic footwear business now with Kaepernick and Nike. A couple of years from now, Kaepernick might be a footnote. Nobody even know who he was. But on the other hand, it's possible that Nike sales were going to take a real jump. On the other hand, I can tell you from experience, if Nike sales are declining and their market share is declining, they're in a big battle with New Balance and Adidas and everything else for the consumer. If those numbers are declining, I can tell you that they're going to pull those Kaepernick ads and say, hey, we made a mistake.
Well, that's not going to happen, George. Look at what's going on in the past week.
Oh, it'll happen if George the way George explained it. If the numbers go down, he'll be gone. Remember Jared and his Subway ads? What happened to Jared and his Subway ads? You don't see him on TV anymore, do you?
Yep.
That's true. But it's almost a fight between Trump and his ideology and the people. Freedom of choice. This one ain't going away for Nike. This is a major coup. Whoever decided to run this one, and you guys said it.
I think you have to wait and see. I wouldn't declare victory at this point.
Okay. All right. And again, I'm not for Nike making a whole bunch of bucks.
No, neither am I. But they made a decision, and the public, since it's a public decision, the public will determine whether or not it's successful.
Well, they will, Alan. They will, and I can tell you from my experience in the athletic footwear business, they're going to be governed by how many pairs of shoes that are being sold, and they know. Hey, they have a baseline. Say 2 weeks before they ran or they started to run the Kaepernick commercials, they might have sold X amount of shoes. Well, then they look at it the same time frame a year from now and see if they've grown market share, then it's worth the investment. If they haven't grown market share, then they'll pull in their horns. This is just the way companies make the
I know.
They'll pull back and they'll say, you know what, we made a mistake. Let's go on from here. Let's come up with the new guy. Because the shelf life, other than a Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods or Serena, is very short. And I can tell you that a few years from now, Colin Kaepernick, if you ask a kid off the street about Colin Kaepernick or a consumer, they'll have no idea who you're talking about a couple of years from now.
If the guy had the playing resume of Tom Brady or somebody like that, then he'd have clout. But
that's a different animal, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yep. Well, gentlemen,
it's also a different message
that the cause has more clout than the individual player, and it isn't the shoes that they're selling so much as publicity for the product.
Right.
So you have to take into consideration how many more T-shirts they sold, How many more?
I'm just saying that there's always a possibility that this particular ploy will not work.
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
That's all I'm saying.
A possibility. But I'll tell you this. I think
George
whoever
is right,
the copywriter was brilliant. I thought that was a brilliant phrase to use on his picture.
Yes, it was. You're right, Hal. Yes, it was.
You know? And I think people can relate to that. I think people who have in their lives and their careers have experienced negative things like Kaepernick has experienced can relate to what that message is. Mm-hmm. And so I think that will sell shoes, and it will sell shirts, and it will sell hats. That's what I believe. But we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay. And you know what I believe? You know what I've been touting on this station for a couple of weeks now, a couple of months now, is that the powers that be that take away voting privileges from retired sports writers who still have their seichel, like Hal Bock, that is a travesty. Whether you say, Hal, if they don't want me, fine, I won't. It's a travesty. I just want to put that on record.
Well, for all around here, 10 years from now, when they put Clemens and Bonds in, we'll know.
Right. So I got to say that, George, Hal, David, all you guys, how insightful, how cathartic it is for me to express my opinion, and how nice it is to hear yours. Thanks for doing this, guys.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
And we're still friends. Nobody's yelling at each other.
No.
We are all still friends, and we're all sort of, we're talking about a subject that is certainly apropos because it just happened. And
okay. And again, I want to not close this by making sure that all of you have said everything you need to say. I've been guilty of that in the past, and I'm making a special effort the last couple of weeks to just not close before anybody has anything.
Well, I've said my piece, and I appreciate the opportunity, and it's always great to talk to you fellas.
Okay, David.
I agree. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, all I want to do is wish the people that, because I have a very close friend whose son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter may be in the path of the hurricane in North Carolina. So I'm just hoping everybody in that part of the country stays safe.
Hey, I have a friend in Maryland who may be in the path of this.
It's not gonna,
what say you, David Hubler? Are you okay?
No, Maryland is not. They just might have some flooded roads and stuff and some heavy rain. But we're from the latest I saw about an hour ago, Northern Virginia and Maryland are pretty much out of it. Yes, the Carolinas, I think, that have the real.
If this thing stalls like they're predicting, like it, the one that did over Houston last year, it's going to be very, very bad.
Right. Yep. Yeah. The bullet point right now is the Cape Fear area around Wilmington, North Carolina, which I think is a great name for the Cape anyway.
Yeah.
Because I love the movie. That was a movie, right? That was. It was twice. It was made.
Yeah, it was remade. Yeah.
Yeah. But the Robert Mitchum version was the best.
Yeah. Well, the originals are almost always better than remakes.
That's true.
That's my theory of movie making, anyway.
Greatest character actor ever. Well, he was terrific. Just editorial comment there from the weak link at the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, Ralh Tyko. We've had David Hubler. We've had Alan Blumkin. We've had George Case. And Ask Hal's guy, Hal Bock. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
everybody. Good night.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Be well. Adios. This has been a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.